Good afternoon, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Milwaukee's Thursday Snack Program. So for those of you who've been here before, you know that we call it a snack because there's a little bit less to it when you compare it to Tuesday. It's a little less formal. There's no pledge, no invocation, no club business, but of course, we just continue to have really excellent programming. And it'll last about 30 minutes. Typically, we feature a member of Rotary, and today we are going to hear from President Darren Miller. He's going to be interviewed by Rotarian Mary Bullock. Mary has been in Rotary for about a year, and so I want to just tell you a little bit about her. Mary's a creative writer and photographer who specializes in website content, advertising, copywriting, corporate communication, and news and feature writing, just quite impressive. She was a newspaper editor, reporter, and photographer for many years and served as a public affairs officer in the Navy Reserve for 10 years. Mary, who owns her own business, Red Rabbit Creative, moved to Milwaukee about 2 years ago with her husband, Harry. And outside of work, she's passionate about film, the arts, and the environment, volunteering with organizations that include Plastic Free Milwaukee and Milwaukee Riverkeeper. So she's a perfect fit for Rotary. And before I turn to Mary, though, I want to say that next week, please tune in on Thursday to hear from our fellow Rotarian, Jason Ray, the Secretary of the DNC, who will be interviewed by our own Megan Holbrook. The format today has been set so that we can all see one another, which is a change for us. And hopefully, I know some people have had trouble logging in, so I'm hoping that that's going to be resolved. We will keep you muted until the end of the program, and then you can set yourself free. We're going to ask you to submit questions via the chat, and Mary or I will read them as they come in once Mary's done with the part of the program. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mary. Thank you, Mary.
All right. Thank you, Mary, and hello, everybody. To prepare for my interview with Darren today, I did my research, as any good reporter would do, and I found that Darren Miller is a character from the BBC soap opera EastEnders, played by Charlie Hawkins. Can you see this? That's him. You could be his body double, maybe, I don't know. But that's a fictional Darren, and I discovered that there's actually quite a few other Darren Millers too. But this Darren, the new president of Milwaukee Rotary Club, is here with us today. Rather than a long intro and sharing his bio, we're going to play 20 questions, and we'll get to know him that way. Darren, I'm honored to interview you today, and I thank you for joining us for today's snack program.
Thanks, Mary. Happy to be here.
All right, let's get started. President Darren is an architect and the president and owner of JM Construction. He designed his family's home in Cedarburg, which was featured on an architectural tour several years ago. It's clean, minimalist design with like no clutter. So Darren, would you say this is a reflection of your personality?
At times, work can get fairly chaotic, but I typically try to keep things tidy, clean, progressive, if you will.
You are a native of Denver, Colorado, although you moved from there when you were pretty young, 5, I think. Do you ever go back to your hometown or your home state?
So still have some family out there. So try to get out once a year, not nearly as much as I'd like, right? My family enjoys skiing, hiking, climbing, that sort of thing. So try to get out once a year, but it doesn't always work out. That'd be my perfect go-to, right? At least once a year.
All right. President Darren got his master's degree in architecture from UW-Milwaukee. Can you tell us a little bit about the jobs that you held before you joined JM Construction?
Sure. GM Construction's a family business, right? Started by my dad. So had the pleasure of being able to work with him in high school and thereafter. But as soon as I got out of architecture school in 2001, went to work for Workshop Architects. Jan van den Kieboom there was a Rotarian for a good deal of time, and you know, that was my first exposure to Rotary, and really enjoyed the firm, the people there. Still have a lot of great contacts that I work with even still today, architects that I had worked with there. So a lot of good friendships, great program. Nothing but nice things to say about you know, SARUP and the School of Architecture and Urban Planning at UWM. You know, 6 of the best years of my life, right? So good experience all around.
Nice. JM Construction is described as a boutique construction business that does commercial and high-end residential projects. What is your favorite JM Construction project?
Favorite JM Construction project? That's tough. We've had one of our clients, we've done a fair amount of work for Erin Hills Golf Course. So we've helped them with a number of maintenance projects. There's a couple of cottages out there that we built for them. The starter shack on that property is my design and construction project that we did for them about 4 years ago. So they've been a really great client. It's a fun spot, you know, always love being out there. I'm not a huge golfer, enjoy it when I get the opportunity, but again, it's just a real nice property, nice level of care and detail out there, real nice dovetail into, you know, design, aesthetic, and construction. So it's been a fun client to maintain.
Nice. Since building is your passion, what is your favorite building in Milwaukee and why?
Favorite building in Milwaukee. I guess it, you know, as an architecture student, right, the art museum, you know, was just wrapping up construction while I was in graduate school, and you know, to see that kind of come together, you know, world-renowned Pritzker award-winning architect, you know, it's hard to deny, you know, the treasure it is for our city, right? Even though on a very hush-hush level, we all in architecture school, it was kind of a regifted design. So he had designs similar to that for other buildings, but fortunate to have it land here in Milwaukee, and then, you know, dovetail into the Saarinen project, which again, you know, where we get to meet on a regular basis. So great property, great asset to the city. So I guess I'd land on that.
That's a good answer. If I were an architect, I would definitely have a signature design element that I'd somehow try to design into every project, either overtly or covertly. And I'm thinking it would be probably a rabbit or maybe a woman runner. So if you do or could have a signature element that would be incorporated into every project, what would it be?
Oh, interesting question. What would it be? You know, again, going back to just having an affinity for clean design. I don't want to say modern or you know, I guess progressive is another term, transitional. You know, I just kind of gravitate to things that are clean, not necessarily one specific element or adornment, but it's just that sort of clean aesthetic, I guess, is something that I typically land on.
Nice. Okay, can you tell us about your professional and philanthropic affiliations and volunteerism and why those particular ones are important to you? In other words, what are you passionate about outside of work?
Sure. Obviously, very passionate about Rotary and its mission. Outside of Rotary, my children went to a St. Paul Lutheran Church and Day School in Grafton for middle school, and spent about 6 years as the chairman of parish properties there. So, that was a meaningful experience for me to be able to contribute there. I also, for 8 years, was a youth lacrosse coach for Ozaki Lacrosse, and I see there's a gentleman on the call that sort of recruited me into that, Kevin Ringgold, who founded Ozaki Lacrosse. I didn't know anything about lacrosse at the time. I just knew how to yell at kids, so I was able to, spend some time there, meaningful time there. I also currently sit on the board of Milwaukee Excellence Charter School in Milwaukee. Was able to be a founding member of that institution. Maurice Thomas, our executive director, had approached me about stepping in and helping, make an effort there with really getting that school off the ground. And it's been a fantastic experience. I've learned a lot. It's a great dovetail into the work I did at St. Paul with regard to facilities. And, there certainly are educational disparities in the city of Milwaukee that need to be addressed. And, there's great people on that team there that are really helping to advance that agenda. And then again, to kind of come back to Rotary, right? It's been an absolutely life-changing and meaningful experience for me to be involved and meet all of the people that I've had the opportunity to meet. I joined Rotary without knowing a single person. So, it's a testament to, just really the great relationships that are developed there and everything that we do. So.
Nice. You mentioned your children. So let's get to know your family a little bit. So can you describe your family members using 3 adjectives each? And do you have any pets?
Okay, I'll start with, let's start with the family and adjectives. So my wife, Shelly, and I, next week will have been married 19 years. 3 adjectives, obviously smart, intelligent, and driven. She really is, she's been, my best friend since we've gotten married, and we've had a fantastic run of experiences. Our son Harrison is 17. He's cerebral is the term that comes to mind. He's just really inquisitive when it comes to understanding the world and science, etc. And my daughter Delaney is she's 13. She'll be in 8th grade. She is addicted to TikTok like every 13-year-old girl. So she's fancy free for sure, and very outgoing and jovial. As far as pets, they're locked up. We've got two dogs. We've got a roughly 8-year-old English bulldog. Hula is her name, and my wife's got a 5-year-old Strudel named Juniper. So, dog people.
Here's a current topic. What would you say is the biggest impact, either negative or positive, that the pandemic has had on you?
Negative or positive? I mean, I'd be hard pressed to not say, we enjoyed having dinner as a family every night for 2.5, 3 months straight, right? I mean, if there's a blessing in that, just having all of that time together. I mean, it's been, as a family with young kids, sports have sort of driven every spring of our lives, right? And my wife and I would typically be running 2 different directions, one with each kid, one to soccer, one to lacrosse, or, one to cross country. And so, while it's, a shame to have all of the sports evaporate in spring, you know, it kind of gave us all that time spent in the car back, right? That we're able to spend in other ways now. I mean, you know, we're not out doing the things that we want, but you know, you got to make the best of having time and other opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Silver linings.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, I was kind of new in Rotary, but I kind of remember you showing up at meetings with your leg in a cast. And for several meetings, it seemed like I seemed to be under the impression for some reason that it was a sports related mishap. Can you confirm or deny that?
So was not a sports related mishap unless you consider cutting trees with a chainsaw on ladders a sport. So, you know, I'm always accused of doing my own stunts, and you know, that one seemed to have gotten the best of me. So,
All right, that leads me into my next question. Besides climbing trees with chainsaws, what are your favorite hobbies?
favorite hobbies, I guess if I had an afternoon to myself on a nice day, I'd have a fly rod and I'd be walking some stream somewhere, preferably in Colorado. You know, my family enjoys boating. We get out and do that as much as possible. Like I said, fly fishing. In the winter, we make the best of the snow by skiing as much as we can. So keeps us out of trouble and busy.
All right, along those same lines, what is your favorite sport to watch live and on TV?
Favorite sport to watch live would be football. You know, I was not the kid that played a whole lot of organized sports growing up. You know, played a little golf, played a little intramural soccer in college just for fun. So it didn't have a whole lot of sports background, but you know, I enjoy watching the Packers play, and you know, my wife is usually the one that's got the TV on, but I find myself getting pretty wrapped up in it. It's hard not to, right?
Yeah,
It's Wisconsin.
right. All right, I see that we're more than halfway through our 20 questions, and I wanted to turn to Rotary a little bit. You kind of touched on this already, and so you can breeze through this one. When and why did you join Rotary, and how has it changed you?
So so I think Rotary's been, this is my 7th year in Rotary. I got a letter out of the blue from past President Rick White. And, you know, I was super busy with work at the time, and, you know, that letter got pinned to my wall, and I always said, oh, you know, my former boss, Jan Ben and Kieboom, being a member and had brought me to Rotary once or twice. You know, and that letter stayed on my wall for about a year, and I finally called the office and spoke to Mary and became a member. And you know, that letter's still hanging on my wall from Rick. He was the only person I really knew at Rotary, just sort of out of the blue connection. And he, you know, was only with the club then for about another year before he and his family moved back to the Carolinas. So how has it changed? How has it changed me? You know, the thing that I tell people most about Rotary is the membership just has such a far reach into the community. When you sit at the table and talk to members, everybody is so involved in all kinds of other philanthropic opportunities in the city of Milwaukee, outside of what the club is doing. So the web is so unique and deep into the community that it's just, you know, for me, knowing that I'm a part of the membership and all the work that they do, and being able to hear and share ideas, I mean, that's just been super rewarding for me.
Yeah, I agree. You took the reins during a pandemic in a time of great social unrest. Our country, according to infectious disease experts and renowned doctors and other professionals, is in a dire situation. What was it like taking over Rotary at such a strange time?
Well, I got to say, President Steve sure gave us a roadmap for that, right? I mean, none of us expected this, and everything that the office has done to keep this programming running has been phenomenal. The board, all the committee chairs, everyone's really dug in to make this all work, and I think the club is doing an excellent job of keeping that all on track. As far as taking over at this time, I mean, not only do we have the pandemic, but we've got the unrest, where people are really looking to the leaders of this country to right the wrongs that have existed in this country for such a long time. We've got health disparities, and we've got economic disparities. We've got disparities in incarceration, education, healthcare, et cetera. And, a lot of these exist primarily in communities of color. And the city of Milwaukee is consistently known as the most, racially segregated city in the United States, right? And so, we have a lot of work in our city to do, and not only on how, economically we handle the pandemic, as a city, as a business community, but in education and also in the philanthropic community, right? So, there's a lot of work to do. I think Rotary is uniquely positioned in the world to take a lot of these initiatives on, and I'm just hopeful that we can identify opportunities and work together to affect change and exploit the opportunities that we have in front of us.
Yeah, that leads exactly into something that I wanted to talk about. I know that the snack program is supposed to be lighthearted. It's the snack program, not the heavy 5-course dinner program. But let's talk about your president's message. I found it, personally, I found it to be bold and perhaps somewhat sobering. You talked about creating a space for truth, and people finding, especially on social media platforms, the truth that conveniently fits their own narrative. And you touched on the divisiveness and baseness that social media has perpetrated or amplified. And then you went on to talk about negative qualities present in our society and the need for a real shift in our perspective, which you just kind of talked about. But could you expatiate on what you mean by creating space for truth in Rotary?
Absolutely. I mean, the four-way test, right? I mean, the first tenet, is it the truth? I think it's become an ever-growing and pervasive issue in the country, right? Where people continually, they just take in the media that reinforces their position, and that goes against everything I think Rotary stands for, right? I mean, we want to create a space for truth where the facts reign and people are able to express their opinions and have a cordial dialogue with someone who doesn't necessarily think like you. Too often, especially as we were talking before the program started, right, with the municipal blog posts where people are constantly yelling at one another. They're looking at these devices and they're typing things into their phone and ranting and screaming and calling names at people that they've never met because it's a text string, or it's just the language that they hear from other people. And nobody would speak that way to one another in person, right? And so, how do we create that space where people can be heard and have a constructive conversation about hard issues? I always default to the better part of people, right? I think that deep down on either side of the political spectrum, people want what's best for their children. They want good education. They want clean water. They want equity, and how they approach it may be different, right? But a lot of times people will just get so worked up about the position. And, I don't know about you, but I've never had a great experience trying to yell somebody into believing my position, right? I mean, that just it doesn't work. It's not constructive. And so, there's a lot of posting out there where people are just angry and yelling, and, there's place for that, right? But I don't know that you really get a lot of constructive direction on that. I mean, Washington, Madison, there's a lot of stalemate, where no one's moving, one way or the other. And in reality, it goes to show that nothing really gets done. So I think, again, my experience in Rotary has been, people have opinions. They don't always align, but it's a very safe place to have conversation and cordial dialogue.
You were named one of the 40 leaders under 40 by the Milwaukee Business Journal, which is a cool feather to have in your cap. But what achievements or honors or accolades are you most proud of or mean the most to you?
I don't have a whole lot of accolades. Like, personally, it's not, I don't find myself seeking that stuff out. I mean, there's small little victories every day that I see in my children, whether it's a test score or, offering to mow the lawn out of the blue. I mean, those are the things that really make me smile. Having opportunities to share friendship, right? Friendship is infinitely meaningful to me. So, again, if I have people call me up and ask me, to go to lunch, I mean, obviously we're not doing a lot of that right now, but to me, just getting an invitation to show up to golf or whatever it is, I mean, those are the accolades that I find to be most meaningful.
That is a very lovely answer. Okay, we're entering the dessert menu portion of our program today. So maybe a little bit more fun. What does your ideal weekend look like?
My ideal weekend looks like a weekend. We've got some property on a lake up north in Rhinelander, and if I could just float on a boat for a weekend with a nice sunny sky, whether that's fishing or water skiing, the more time I can spend on a boat, the happier I tend to be. Without chores.
What's your favorite thing to cook if you do cook, or eat if you don't cook?
So I'm not a great cook. I don't love to cook. If it's on the grill, it's simple in my world. I'll admit that this past Tuesday, I had taken some ribeyes out of the freezer and threw those on the grill, and I played my hand at making some risotto, which actually turned out. So I had a few other sides in the wings in case that tanked. But we have some friends that are hyper foodies, and so I just cut their recipe and followed along. So I'm no great culinary savant, but once in a while I try my best.
Nice. What are you currently reading, and what book do you most often find yourself recommending?
That's a good question. So I currently am wrapping up a book named What Doesn't Kill Us. It's by Scott Carney. It's a book about, you spent some time, Wim Hof, I think, was the gentleman who was, the author was sent to debunk this method of, that he used out in the wilderness, sitting outside and, raising the idea of how society has become very soft. And, 1,000 years ago, we would have been subjected to, extreme cold and extreme heat, and we would have had to farm and catch our own food. So just sort of getting back to a holistic diet and approach to staying lean. And then the other book that I've got sitting in the queue is Between the World and Me. The board is looking at that by Ta-Nehisi Coates as the next sort of book read. So that'll be where I'm going next.
That's a good one. Those are my 20 questions, but this is a journalism thing that we always do before we open it up to the Q&A. Is there anything else you'd like to mention that we didn't cover and that might not come up in the Q&A portion?
The book question's always a good one. I like asking that question as well. I asked Rob Henkin that same question in the Q&A at the end of our program on Tuesday, and it's interesting to hear what other people are reading, right? I typically have a book or two going at the same time, which I don't know if that's healthy or not, but I like to bounce back and forth. But it's a great question to lead in.
Mary, there's a couple, this is Mary McCormick, and there are a couple of questions in the chat, but there's really about a dozen or so of us on the call. So I think that if we would like everybody who has a question could just unmute themselves and ask it yourself. Or?
I'll jump in. I hate the vacuum. Can you talk about the switch from polio to the YWCA, or is that somebody else? And maybe it's been discussed already.
Yeah, I can jump in on that, Alex. We at the board, we've got a committee that is working on understanding structural racism, right? I mean, we all have a lot of work to do on that, and the board is taking recommendations from that committee. We're meeting now virtually. We've met over the last few months, and the board has adopted a lot of the initiatives there, and I think this is a great way to support a good, the work of the YWCA. I had the privilege of taking their Unlearning Racism course with Mary. Her and I did that last fall, which is, again, a very, even though it's a very consistent program over the course of weeks, it just scratches the surface of the work we all have to do. And so, we all at the board level felt like it was great, or it would be a good opportunity for us to amplify that message and support the work of the YWCA this year. We're still continuing the work on polio, right? So, everyone's dues still includes a request for the donation to the polio eradication fund. So, we're working on both initiatives, but again, I think, it was a great, we had great discussion at the board level about, how to help amplify that message over the course of this year. So it's been, I think it's going to be a great direction. So.
Thanks.
Hey, Darren, it's Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
Thank you so much for this incredible role that you're taking on. I think you'll do a great job. I was curious, what is not on your resume that something would be of interest to people on this call?
Not on my resume, like a quirky factoid about me.
Yeah, right.
I have a ham radio license. That's kind of quirky.
Yeah, put that on your resume?
No. It was just one of those things I decided to do a while ago, but it's fun and quirky.
Do you do anything with it anymore?
Not really. I have a motorcycle. I mean, there's another quirky thing. I don't know how happy my family is about that, but. It's the only other thing that's put me in surgery outside of chainsaws and ladders. So.
Darren, this is Steve. I'm just curious, as an architect, how do you view Milwaukee from your professional point of view? And the reason I ask that is my son, who lives out in Menominee Falls, is a bicycle rider of quite a long distance type rider, and he recently went the other way than he normally does. Instead of going out to Holy Hill, he went into town and did the trails and went down to the parks along the river, and was just amazed. What is your thought as an architect about Milwaukee compared to other cities like Denver or elsewhere?
There's a lot of great buildings in Milwaukee, right? There's a lot of interesting history. Third Ward, Walker's Point, Bayview, downtown. There's a lot of really, well-built, interesting buildings. I think, we often suffer from being, the little sister, little brother to Chicago, right? World-renowned city with world-renowned buildings and architecture. But a lot of that is driven by economics. But again, there's great properties and buildings in Milwaukee, and I think it's from a design and construction perspective, I enjoy driving around the city and passing things that I've had an opportunity to participate in, whether on the design side or the construction side or development side. It's just watching the city grow and change over years. An interesting story, when I was in grade school, my dad took me to one of his construction projects it was a commercial office that he was working on in downtown Milwaukee, which oddly right now sits about a block from my office. And over the course of the last probably 10 or 11 years ago, I was hired by the building owner to demolish and remodel the same space that I'd walked through as a kid. And I walked into the building and I'm like, this is very familiar to me. And it took a while to put it together. So, I mean, it's just interesting how the city changes, and, it's fun to watch that happen.
Darren, this is Chris.
Hey, Chris.
If there was one, every Rotary president, it's been my experience, kind of puts their mark on the club during their year. If there was one thing that you hope to see at the end of the year that's really, but for you, what would that be?
Oh, I'm pretty emphatic about this not being my year. This is our year, right? I mean, it was President Ed and Steve had approached me about the idea of, that the board came up with regarding having, a deeper succession. So we had, a president-elect. And so I think that having that sequence makes it less about one person and more about the club. So again, I don't have any one thing that I need to accomplish or advance. I think that the work that the Understanding Structural Racism Task Force is working on, and how to bring that message to Rotary and make it a brighter light. I think, if I can help in any small way continue that work, that'll be the most meaningful direction for me. But again, that's not my work. That's our work. That's President Ed took that up. Steve, you carried it. If I can help it along and pass it to Todd and Karen, I think that'll be just a great message. So.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions?
Thank you, Darren. Really, really great job. And I know that I speak for everybody, not just on the call, but in the club, but we're really very glad to have you be president this year. So thank you.